Hey guys, today on the Latched Mama podcast, we have Patience with us. Patience is a very dear friend, and she is here to talk to us about birth photography, I don't know, birth in general, motherhood, serving others, and some of her big goals and dreams for the future. So hope you enjoy it. You're listening to the Latched Mama podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wirt, business owner and tired mom of 5. Join us each week as we talk about pregnancy, nursing, parenting, and all things motherhood. Hi.
Hi, how are you? Hey, I want to tell you, I think you have a really good podcast voice.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's like the taddest but sexy. Like, it totally works.
I like it. Everybody sounds better when you put a mic in front of them, I feel like.
You think that's it?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. So, hi.
How are you?
Good. Do you want to tell people who you are? It's a very loaded question.
I know. It sounds so simple. It should be like a simple answer. I don't know why
Not
that
for
it's
you.
not. Yeah.
You're so many things.
Oh, dear. I'm tired is what I am.
Tell the... I feel you on that one.
So my name is Patience. I am a partner to a really rad guy, George. He's really, really dear, and he's still really sexy. And I have 4 kids, ages 11, 13, 14. No, wait, 11, 14, 17, and almost 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're so far ahead of me in life, but it's
No.
good.
No, it is good. And I think like when you're in it, when you have little children, like you don't know what you're holding,
Yeah.
and you don't know what you're building.
Yeah.
Now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like we held so much. Like it's a lot to keep people alive.
Every once in a while, like one of the older ones will like have this like big thing, like that just feels so big.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like your feelings were hurt, or like something major that you don't even think about when like you're in the trenches of the little ones. And it's it only gets bigger, I feel like.
Yeah. And I think there has to be some sort of grace or kindness, because like you don't know when your kids get older that they sort of need you. Like it's like infant return or something, but it's just different kind of parenting. And so like the same way, like I wouldn't tell a mom with kids that are 12 and up, like, get your crap together. You'd be like, do you need a nap? The same way you would say to a mom with a newborn, like, you're exhausted. I hear you. But anyway, yes, back to who I am. So I have 4 kids. I'm a kindness worker, and that's a whole other topic for another day.
We'll get there. Who knows? We might get there today because we have no plan.
And I'm a birth and hospice photographer. So I shoot birth and death. Had a really hard time, sort of fell into that work. Never thought that I would do that. But I just couldn't do like family sessions and stuff like that. It was hard for me to make anybody do anything. Yeah. And so the magic of birth and death is that you are watching something really, really real unfold. Yeah. And all I have to do is reflect back what I see, which oftentimes is like the insane power of women and partnerships. And like I sometimes I just think to myself, I look in the lens and I think, oh my gosh, like I can't believe she's doing this right now.
When Patience shoots things that I would never in a million years, like, I think that there's birth photography in the world, and then there's somehow what Patience captures. And I don't know if there's a God play in it. I'm still kind of marveled sometimes by what I see come out from the other side of your camera. I mean, it is incredible, the moments that you somehow capture. You're not trained, correct?
No, I have literally no training. I'm completely self-taught. I've never been to a class in my entire life, which is greatly saddened by my husband and other people around me. They were like, you should have gone to a class. But I think for me, it's really intuitive. And so the skill came, but the intuition was so deeply there to see. I can't take pictures of anything that's not there. Yeah. So everything that you see about women or birthing people or humans, like that's all you. Like people compliment my work, but when I go back and look, I'm like, that's you. Like that's what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like I've watched birth photography just kind of blow up in the last few years. And I shot my first birth almost a little over 10 years ago. And I took a break to do some other work that was really in the forefront, some kindness work that was really, really important in my life. But I think the thing that I've really noticed about birth photography now is like we're hitting like this trend.
Yeah.
Crazy. Like you have a wedding photographer, you have a birth photographer. But I guess a little bit of my concern is when we see that, it's like, what do we want? What do you want in a birth photographer? Like, you want to capture this crazy important moment in your life, but like, what does it look like? And I think the thing I always tell people is that the most important thing more than anything, I mean, you obviously want someone whose work you've seen that you feel good about, but is that you feel good about that person being in a room with you.
Absolutely.
During one of the most like intimate moments of their lives. Like you have to sit with that person or talk to that person, and you have to feel that vibe out. Like, is this someone I want close to me if I happen to poop unexpectedly? Like, because that shit is gonna happen. Like, does this person feel like accessible? Almost like, for me, it's like the question I ask myself is like, does this person feel like a sister?
Yeah.
Like, does this person, I feel safe? And I say this to my clients, but I know this is really taboo and no one else probably said this, but I say, I want you to know at any point in this process, you can fire me.
Yeah.
And the reason that is because it's more important that you feel safe in a birth space than it is that you even have pictures. And so people always laugh, and I think I was only fired once, but it was a birth that I was so proud of her. I was so happy she did it. Like,
and she just didn't want you there.
Well, what happened was the birth was unfolding and it was looking like she was going to have a section. And at that moment, like birth is like you're being observed.
Yeah.
And photography is a camera in a room. And she just knew herself, and she knew that it wasn't going the way that she wanted. And she didn't want that photographed. And for other people, like, they want that photographed. It's proud, they're happy, but for everyone's different and all the needs are different. So the one thing I would tell you is meet and talk to people and make sure you feel really comfortable and really good with them.
I think that's a life lesson for anybody that is anybody that is near you when you were in labor or having a baby. Like, and they joke, if you wouldn't want them in the room when you're having sex, like, do you feel comfortable having them around you when you're birthing your baby? Because it's such an intimate thing. Even if you're rolling up to the hospital and you want to get an epidural immediately, and you're going to lay in a bed and eat ice chips and do whatever, it's still a super intimate experience that you should really be present for, and you don't want anybody there that's going to prevent that from happening.
No, totally. And you also want somebody that's like sort of part of your birth team, that if you have a doula or if you have whatever other providers you have with you, that can kind of like be on the team, and we're all sort of here to serve and love on you. Like, you need that kind of vibe, I think, across the board. Some photographers are really comfortable just being a fly on the wall. Some photographers, like, I know really amazing people that'll get down in there and hold your leg and stop and take a picture. Yeah. Like, so you have to kind of decide what you want for yourself. But I would definitely say talk, and then go and look at their work. And oftentimes, like, it's really okay to ask, like, hey, can you send me a whole birth, a whole session? Because what we see on Instagram is really someone's best work. Yep. Understandably. But ask to look at all of their work. Another thing too is ask really clear questions on what is required when. Some birth photographers won't see you until you take a deposit. Some want it at the end. But I just think, like, there's certain things, like, credentials don't necessarily make someone qualified, but they have to qualify in your heart. They have to qualify with your vibe. They have to qualify with your style of photography. And they have to sort of think of yourself, like, this person is for you.
And if you end up on the other side with no pictures, that's totally fine too. And I feel like we sometimes set expectations of birth that you need to have, the best, robe to put on afterwards, or you need these matching pictures afterwards, or you need all of these things that need to be perfect. You need pictures. At the end of the day, I've had all sorts of things. I've had the birth that was in the back of the car and that I have a video simply because my husband had to turn on the camera. The only way that the flashlight worked on the iPhone then was to have the camera. So I have this like complete me in shock having a baby in the back of the car so my husband could have light so we could figure out what the heck was happening. So, you know, I have that version. And then I have midwife taking photos for a couple. I have a wedding photographer who tried to be a birth photographer for one, which was fine and worked out fine. And then I have Patience's photos for one of them as well. But I mean, it took me five births to really truly say, hey, you know what, that's cool, let's add this to our bag of tricks. Like, I'm okay with having somebody there that is going to take some pictures. And my husband still wasn't completely on board, but it worked out and it was good, but it's not necessary. And I think that we need to be careful that we're not complicating things, I think, too much. So.
Absolutely. And I also think too, like, you need someone that can sort of intuit and feel the feelings in the room. Like, not all moments are meant to be photographed.
Yep.
And some are supposed to be held in your heart with your people. And so you need somebody that can read that. And also too, like, I know there's like my favorite moment in shooting birth, and I always sort of look for it. But you know, like, there's that classic shot of like a bride or a partner walking down an aisle, and you take the picture of the person that they're walking to. There's a similar shot in birth where, and it's usually reserved for first labors, where like you're in this moment and you're the only one in the room that can make that baby come.
Absolutely.
And we can do everything to support you, but like, you have to walk through it.
Yeah.
And in that, I watch partners' faces, and there's this moment where they realize that, like, this is the person they love most, and there's nothing
they can do.
And I swear to you, like, that moment, like, that look on their face is the most helpless, deep love.
Yeah.
And I'm always amazed, like, when I look back, I'm like, I tell people, like, that's how much that person loves you, by that look and that moment, you know? And I think women, when they're in labor, they go to their labor land and they don't really know what's happening around them.
Yeah.
And so part of the beauty of having birth photography is, you know, you can go back and like, oh, he was holding my hand, or she was holding my hand that way.
Yeah.
Or like, that happened, or I didn't remember when the dog came in. And, you know, like, so it helps people recreate and put their stories back together, I think. And so like, the job of your birth photographer is to tell your story, like what unfolded, what happened. And I think oftentimes we have this like really idyllic vision of what birth is going to be like. And we see women completely made up, and that's fine. If that's you, like, do it.
That's the way you want to do it.
But I think sometimes then you get in it and you're like, whoa, like, this isn't what I thought it might be like. But then you can go back and say, wow, I also worked really, really hard. And I have all this love around me. And, you know,
I think the going back part is cool. I've heard a lot of people who will go back and revisit their birth photos, not because they want to print them and put them all over the walls, but the motherhood is hard and the days are long. And to know that you have done something so strong and so magical, you can get through the tantrums and you can get through the sleepless nights, because, you know, at the end of the day, you did this great thing, and you have photos of yourself doing it that you wouldn't have, you know, if you didn't invite somebody into the space.
It's so true. Like, I had this one mom call me, and she had a really challenging postpartum, and just baby had some issues, and some of it was gastrointestinal. Like, some of it was like multiple things. It was bilirubin. It was all these things happening at the same time. And it was really hard for her to sort out what was happening when. And so it really like jogged her mother's intuition. It wasn't her first baby, but she was like, what do I do with this baby? I can't even figure out what's wrong, you know? And she told me that she used to go back at night, at the end of the night, when she would crawl into bed, and she said she just wanted to cry, and she would pull up this one picture where she was pushing him out.
That's so cool.
And she said she looked like such a badass. Like, every vein in her neck was pushed out, and she told me, like, I kept telling myself, like, if I can do that, I can do this.
It's awesome.
You know, and so like, I don't think we know always the impact. You know, I had another mom tell me too that she looked back at her pictures and the birth didn't go the way that she wanted. And I thought it was such a true response. She said, I've never felt so sad and so proud at the same time. And I just thought that was such a good picture, because the truth is, like, we do all this preparation for birth and we buy these, all these things, and we do all these things, but like, you have to go live your life with a baby after that.
Absolutely.
And you have to do all these things. And so you need people in your corner. You need all these little parts. Like, you need your nursing top that makes you feel cute. Like, you need
latch mama plug there.
Yeah, like you need your pictures to go back and look at. You need somebody to call you and be like, like, you need sisters, you need support, you need people that come behind you and remind you about who you are and what you can do, and that you are doing it. Like, it doesn't end at labor.
Yeah. And I think that there's some sort of magic in perhaps stretching yourself enough to invite somebody other than a care provider or a partner into your birth space. And I can't believe I'm really saying this, because I've always been an advocate of, shut that shit down. Your partner, your care provider, you don't need anybody else. But it's really actually nice sitting here with Patience and knowing that, she was at my leg when my water was broken. She saw this baby come out of me in a very, very bizarre, weird way that I birth very strangely, and it's
like no one I have ever seen. And I have mad respect after that birth. There was new levels of just like awe.
But it's so funny because like I don't have anybody, like somebody comes in and talks about birth, and I have a really hard time sometimes connecting with the natural birth narrative, that it is the hardest thing you'll have to ever do in your life, because for me, for some reason, the way my body's built, the way my birth babies, it's not the hardest thing that I have to do. A 45-minute cardio workout is harder for me than having a baby. So it's really nice for me to have somebody other than a care provider and other than a partner who just kind of looks at me and says, well, why isn't that great? Isn't that a good thing? It's not hard. It's really nice to have somebody else that I can relate to, that can say, hey, you were there. Like, can we talk through it a little bit or something like that? So I think opening up the birth space a little bit, if you're confident enough to do it, sometimes will give you those people sometimes in your corner once you get on the other side of it.
I also think too, like, and those people can also pop up at different times of our journey, right? Because I always say, like, everyone that has a path to parenthood, right? And we're not even just talking birth, we're talking adoption, we're talking anybody that has a child. There is a point in pregnancy or your birth or your postpartum where you will feel like you might not recognize it, but you might be like, I can't do this, or I don't know how I'm going to do this, or and that is the very moment that you become the mother.
Absolutely.
That's the moment you become a parent. And for some people, that, like, they have these horrible, hard pregnancies, and then they breeze through these births, but they have their moment. And some people get it a couple times, like some people, and I don't know why, but those are the moments that make us like the parent to this baby in this moment, and everybody has to walk it. So like, what does that look like for you, and who do you want around you? And also too, like, knowing that your birth might be really, really easy. And you're like, then we start telling ourselves these stories like, well, why isn't mine, or what's wrong with me? But you don't know the postpartum that somebody else was walking through, and you don't know the pregnancy that someone else is walking through, which makes it so much more important that we sort of hold ourselves, all of us, in this like little space of grace and mercy, or you don't know what kind of kid you're going to have. You don't know if you're going to have a kid that's hard or different or needs you in a certain way. Like, and so like we talk about birth and we talk about birth photography, we talk about all these things, but actually I think it's all these other things around it that matter. And that sort of make the whole experience. So I would say more than anything, relationally, like, how do you feel about these people? Yeah. And what do you need in that? And what do you want for yourself? And what do you want for everybody else? Like, what do you want other people to have? Like, live the thing that you want for everyone.
So talk to me a little bit about where you see your work going from here.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I've shot for a long time in a lot of births, and I didn't know where that would land for me. But I think where it's taking me now is I really have a desire to, I've never thought of myself as an artist, believe it or not. I've never even really thought of myself.
We will link to Patience Instagram below this podcast. But if you also don't believe she's an artist.
No. I've never thought of myself even as a photographer. It's a weird space. I think for me, it has the call is to people and to loving and serving people, however that unfolds. I'll never forget, like I was at a birth one time and somebody said, I was washing the dishes and her husband came out and said, hey, like, she's really worried that you're washing the dishes. like, cause all of us have that feeling, and I walked in and I said, okay, can I just hear me out just for like 2 seconds? Like, just let me talk to you. And we're in the middle of contractions and birth. Yeah. And I said, okay, like if your mom or your sister walked in and they started doing your dishes, you would be like, oh, thank God. Yeah. And you would just let them do it and you wouldn't even think about it. And like, that would be that. And I said, can you let me like sister you today? Because like before somebody else sistered me and then tomorrow, some other day, it's going to be your job and you're going to go and you're going to open up the sippy cup that has 3-day-old milk in it and you're not even going to bat an eyelash.
Absolutely.
You're going to chuck that thing and keep going. Like, and she looked at me and she said, so sisters don't judge, right?
Oh.
And I said, nope, they sure don't.
We all got our messes.
And
for sure.
I just remembered feeling that way myself. Like, and so like, it was such a big lesson to me. She taught me a lesson that day that like, we all need to sister each other. So the base and heart of my work is that. So whatever that looks like. But somewhere along the way, I've picked up this skill, this photography skill, and that's part of it. And I think what I love most about it is like showing you, like my only job is reflection, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm just showing you who you are and like how you loved and what you held. And it's not pretty. I don't really like really pretty like togetherness. Like I will ask for the mess any day of the week. I will choose that over and over and over
There's
again.
So much beauty in it.
There's so much beauty. And so it's really what I'm interested in. I'm far more interested in that and what is real, which is I'm sure why I landed in birth and death. But now like I just want to know what that looks like around the world. And I've made a little decision in my heart that I'm going to shoot birth and death around the world.
Have you traveled extensively?
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is a few years ago, my husband and I just kind of looked at each other and I came from a family that valued travel. Okay. Like my dad had literally died and I said, Dad, is there anywhere you wanted to go that you didn't get to go? And he said, yeah, no, I'm good. Awesome. And I was shocked. Like, who have you ever said like where, he had just for his work and life and they valued that. We always had people of different cultures and just, it was something in our home that was kind of held up. And so I didn't feel like that could happen for me. I don't have any money. I was living paycheck to paycheck. Like that just, I have 4 kids. Like, and I was happy. That was fine. Like I didn't feel like I was missing out, but I just didn't know how that would ever happen. Mm-hmm. And so we got rid of half of everything we owned and we moved to a house half the size. And with the idea that we could travel, we wanted the kids to know like the world is bigger than the United States. Absolutely. So we ended up being able to travel and it's like super on the cheap. We eat street food and we like stay in the cheapest Airbnbs and we huddle all together. But it was literally the best decision I ever made for my family. And it brought us, sort of pulled us in together. And they still, like not a week goes by that they don't talk about the trips. And like my kids were just entering middle school when we did that. And it was a really good decision. So, but I realized for me that was even bigger. Like I want to go to India. I want to go to Morocco. I want to go to Chile. I want to go to Svalbard. I want to go, like, I want to see Greenland. I want, and so.
But you want to go and you want to serve and you want
I want to serve. And I also do not want to see just a tourist perspective. Mm-hmm. I want to see what it means to like hold your baby at 2:00 in the morning in your culture with your food and your people. Like, what does that look like? And, how is that accessible? Like what, if home birth's not accessible in your world, like what is, and who are the people holding that up? Mm-hmm. Like who are the people serving other people? Who are the sisters Like,
Yeah.
who's the sister washing your food out of a bucket?
Yeah.
Instead of like, what is that?
So cool.
Yeah. Like, what does that look like? And how do we honor that? And how do we find each other in that? Right? Because like the divisions are multiple and plenty,
Yeah.
But when you're a mom and you're nursing your baby and you're just trying to keep your head above water, or it's going really well that day, or, whatever it looks like there's some mother or some birthing person, or there's some human on another side of the world feeling the same way. And what does that look like for them?
It's such universal things that you shoot and that you capture, that I know from traveling around the world myself, that it brings you it's just this magical thing that it brings you perspective, but at the same time you learn that there are so many different ways of doing things, and one way is not necessarily the right way. And I know as a mother, it's given me such a sense of grace for myself and for others. Like just watching, babies swaddled on the back of motorcycles in China, and like just when I remember I was in Tokyo for the earthquake, and we had to walk home because the subway was closed, and the amount of children that took public transportation home from school, where, there are people in my life whose, kids aren't allowed out of their sight. And it's just it's just fascinating to me. And it's fascinating how cultures can change motherhood, and I'm sure can change birth and death and how we need to embrace it all. Because I think through embracing it all and learning about it, we're going to grant ourselves grace and really kind of learn that, we don't always do things the only right way.
Oh, absolutely. And also too, like advocacy, like what's happening in birth in these places, and
like Venezuela.
Yeah. And like, who are the people doing that work? And also like, what does it look like to advocate for each other and for women worldwide, and for girls, and for, you know what I mean? Like I'm interested in all of that across the board. Like I want to see it. And I just think, especially in our American culture, like we just have this tunnel,
and we're not doing it great. I mean, especially on the birth side, we're not getting it right currently in terms of taking care of our moms and babies. So, maybe we can learn how people do such a better job with so much less than we have.
Absolutely. And I think when we get to the very human spaces and places of that, like, I think that's where we find each other. And I also think it's where we learn. So I'm really curious and interested, and so I'm setting up contacts now.
That's awesome.
So if anyone around the world, you Latched Mama people, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I have no idea how I'm going to pay for it. I have no clue. But I know now it's like, it's one of these things that's like, it's in your heart and you're like, oh shit, like I'm gonna have to do that either way. Like whether it goes well or whether it goes terribly, or like I don't know how. I just know, like from my previous work and the way that I move through the world, like when something's in my heart, like I have to follow it and honor it, however it unfolds.
Well, we'll help you get there.
Oh, thanks.
We'll hold you accountable. We're good at that around here. But I'm excited. I can't wait to see the work.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. So thank you. Thanks for coming and playing.
Okay. And I just want to tell you one more thing.
Okay.
Like, only being a few years ahead, right? Because I look to the mothers that like they're empty nesting and their kids are all grown. I say, oh my gosh, just tell me, what do I do? Yeah. Like, tell me it all. I just want you to know, like, wherever you're at, whatever thing that you're in today, like you're holding and building something. Like,
no pressure. No pressure.
No. It's the opposite. Like, the work you're doing is more important than you'll ever know. And even if you're just surviving, like my son always says, Mom, sometimes it's just about surviving. But I want you to know, like, your surviving is even better than you think. Yeah. Like, you're doing it, and it is hard, and you don't even know how hard it is until you get to the other side, and you won't know what you did. But I'm here to tell you that what you did is good and it's important. Aww. Yeah, for sure. And I'm not saying that with like to blow some sunshine. I'm telling you it's the truth. So like, however you gave or whatever, like however tired you are, like you did the right thing. Like, you're doing it. Yeah. Aww. Yeah. And I want some old lady now to come tell me what I'm doing with my teenagers. Okay.
We'll go find them. We'll go hit the streets after
Some
this.
wise woman, come remind me what I'm doing right now because I have no idea. So.
Oh, if only they wrote books about the kids we actually birth. Because the books are never applicable to actual life that you have in life. But anyways, cool. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for dreaming big. We love you.
Oh man, forever and ever.
We're gonna link to Patience's Instagram below, so stay in touch and follow her work.
Thanks guys. Mama. Bye people.